Hey, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm just coming to you now with another video for our Sunday school this week. And we're in Unit 11, Session 2. And in this session, we're going to still be in First Samuel. And this is actually going to be a very well known story for all of you and for most of our students. And we're going to be talking about the story of David and Goliath. And so let's go ahead and get started. We got our 3 points as usual, and our first point being Israel faces an enemy that it cannot defeat. So we're starting off in 1 Samuel 17, verses 2 through 11. And one of Israel's biggest enemies at this time were the Philistines. And they had a great army, and they were very powerful. And they had one guy, he was a giant, stood 9 feet tall, named Goliath. And he basically posed a threat to the Israelites and said, "Send out men to fight me. And if I kill them, you'll be my servants. If you kill me, we'll be your servants." And so they did this for months, for days. And he would come out, and it just left all of the Israelites shaking, scared. They didn't want to fight him. Even the king, he didn't want to do it. They were all basically retreating. They felt like they were defeated. They felt like they had no chance to fight Goliath. You know, and we can make a point to the kids when we're talking about this that there are some giants that are in our lives, whether it be a sin we're dealing with, whether it's anxiety, depression. There are different things that we have in our lives that feel like giants that are weighing down on us, feeling like we can't defeat them. And a lot of times we respond just like these Israelites did and run in fear and terror and hide. So let's make a point to the kids to, hey, what are some of the giants that we face in our lives? What are those obstacles and adversities in our life that we need to overcome? And should we handle it like these guys did, or should we handle it as we'll look forward to in the next part of this lesson, like David did? So let's move on to point two, which is where David trusts in the Lord for the victory. And this is still in 1 Samuel 17. So no one else would step up to fight Goliath. He was, uh, but David said he would do it. And David was not qualified at all. When you, I think of Saul as the king, he was the one that was looked upon as the giant as for the Israelites. So you would think he would step up, or somebody of greater stature, but no, David was the least qualified, but yet he was the one willing to serve. And David was confident in this, knowing that he wasn't going in this with his own power, because he knew he had God, you know, looking over him, watching over him, and he knew that since he had God, he could conquer the Goliath. And he knew this because David was a shepherd, and while he was out taking care of his sheep, he would come across bears, he'd come across lions that would try and attack his sheep. So David would have to go after them and make sure his sheep were okay. And he said, God was with me when he was taking care of me with these animals. He's going to be with me and take care of me when I'm fighting Goliath. So just as he knew God took care of him, the sheep, David knew that God was going to take care of him when he fought Goliath. And the motivation David had to step up for this was because Goliath was calling out the Israelites, like blaspheming God, basically trash talking God for the Israelites. And David didn't want to stand for that. So he was motivated to take him out because he did not want him trashing the name of God. So that was his motivation for stepping up and going to fight Goliath. And our third point, the last point that we'll look at today, is David wins the victory for his people. This will be in verses 48 through 52. So as we know, David goes to fight Goliath, and he doesn't fit in any of the armor. It's too heavy for him. So as we know, he goes out and has a slingshot and 5 stones. That's what he goes out to fight him with. Probably if you're looking at this, you don't think he has any chance to win. But David, as we know, he goes up to Goliath, he stands before him, and he throws a rock at him and hits him right in the middle of the forehead, and he drops him. Right, and so David then goes and takes his own sword from him and cuts his head off, letting all the Philistines know he got his power from God, and this was an example. He made an example out of Goliath by the power of God. So as we look at this, what we should let our students know is when we overcome the giants in our lives, they don't come from our own power. It comes from understanding that God's the one that's going to work in us. God's the one that's giving us the ability to overcome them. Because David probably had no business being able to defeat Goliath. And without the help of God on his side, I don't know if he would have. But because he knew that God was in him, God was working for him, he had the ability to overcome this giant. So that's what I would say, kind of make an effort to make that point to our students as we're going through this. Just let them know there are giants in our lives and we can overcome them when we turn to Jesus and understand he is the one that is capable to get us through that. I thank you all for all that you do and look forward to seeing you all this Sunday. Thank you.